ありがとうございます。ハルさんお願いします。
Mr. Hart?
I'm from a very small country, and for us, multilateralism, there was really no substitute for multilateralism. So we fully support a rules-based, multilateral, legally binding climate regime. From the fields of human rights to trade to international peace and security, legally binding agreements signal the highest level of political will, they increase confidence among participants, and they motivate action across both the political and bureaucratic spheres. It comes as no surprise that the Alliance of Small Island Developing States, that we've always advocated a new protocol under the convention as the most desirable outcome in terms of the legal form of the future regime. We believe that this will provide predictability, certainty, and provide mutual assurances among parties that we will be effectively combating climate change on the scale required. Some have argued that a set of court decisions, a pledge and review system will raise the level of ambition, and that there's this link between a loose legal form and a high level of ambition. Well, we got that in the Copenhagen Accord, a pledge and review system embedded in a decision that was taken note of, and that did not raise the level of ambition. Science is telling us that we're only doing 60% of what is required to stay below 2 degrees. In our view, if there's legal certainty, if all parties are bound, have legally binding obligations, then it, and I know that South Africa is legally bound, then we believe that that will increase the level of ambition. In terms of the issue of applicable to all, which is the new phrase in the Durban platform, some see a tension between that and the principle of common but differentiated responsibility and equity. My own personal view is that this is essentially a question of burden sharing. And how we approach this question in the negotiations over the next few years will determine the success of the outcome at Durban. In my view, science must guide our work. We know where the emissions are, but we also need an agreement that is fair, an agreement that does not jeopardize the legitimate development aspirations of developing countries. So in looking at questions of applicable to all, issues of equity and fairness must be operationalized. But again, as I said, we must be faithful to the science if we are to comprehensively address climate change. On the issue of differentiation, which was in the guidance note, if we are to have a truly legally binding rules-based system, we must all have a legal obligation or equal legal obligations to undertake the actions or whatever commitments we commit to. Now, the nature of those commitments will be different. One cannot expect Haiti or Bangladesh to have the same commitments as Japan or the United States. They will have an equal legal obligation to implement whatever commitments, but the nature of the commitments will be different across countries. And finally, as it relates to the Kyoto Protocol, it is not a favorite phrase or in many circles. And there's always the temptation to say that the Kyoto Protocol was unfair, that the Kyoto Protocol did not work. But it was never the intention of the Conference of the Parties that the Kyoto Protocol would be the last legally binding instrument under the convention. It was to be the beginning of a process that would evolve into what we currently have now. Unfortunately, it took us over a decade to finalize the institutional architecture. It took us until 2005 for the Kyoto Protocol to enter into force. But there are so many good things that are embedded in the Kyoto Protocol and lessons like, it gave birth to carbon markets. The CDM would not have existed without the Kyoto Protocol. We have an internationally agreed set of rules to measure, report, and verify actions. And we certainly can build and learn from many of the useful lessons emanating from the Kyoto Protocol. So in conclusion, for us, an international, if we are to combat this global threat of climate change, we need a strong, rules-based, legally binding climate regime. Thank you.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much.
で